Here we're working on a simple registration page that if you pass information to the server, then the server stores it in the database and then echoes back the information that we had sent with the additional property that of the ID property that uniquely identifies the record that has been stored. What we'd like to be able to do now is that once the server responds with the documentation that has been inserted into the database, what we'd like to be able to do is now navigate to the profile page. We have here the profile page of the currently created user. So here we have the registration page that invokes the registration in the controller, and here we have the controller using a user service to encapsulate all the various methods to interact with the backend. So instead of just echoing to the console the response from the server, what I'd like to be able to do is perhaps navigate to the profile page. Right now, the profile page is empty. Here it is. It's just profile. So we're in the registration page. You'd like to be able to navigate to the profile page once the registration is successful. So one way to do that is to use the location service. So here's location, and use the location to change the URL. Location URL, you want to set it. And what I'd like to be able to do is navigate to one of the configured URLs. One of them is profile, right? And that's been configured in the config file here. Notice that these are all the known URLs, right? Routes, the known routes. And one of them is profile. There it is. And notice, if you remember, this matches anything that is after the pound sign here. So if we change this to be profile, then it'll navigate to the profile page. We like to do that programmatically. Right? So here, when it's done, navigate to profile. So by in the controller, by using the URL function, this will allow us to navigate to that page. So let's try it again. Let's reload this. Let's Frank. Register. Notice that it navigates to profile. But once we get to profile, I'd like to show some information about the currently logged in user or registered user. One way to share information amongst these two is either through a dedicated service like we showed you earlier, or another way is to use the root scope, store some information in there. So for instance, what we could do is put into the root scope the into, say, a variable in there, called, say, current user. We'll put here the response. Then in the profile page, notice in the profile page, for instance, we might just use that variable from user. And what this is going to do is it's going to look in the current scope of the controller that is dedicated for this page, which there isn't. I don't believe we never configure a control for the profile. There isn't. Okay, so what it's going to do is going to look in the scope of the current controller. There isn't one. It's going to keep looking at all the parent controllers, if there are any, and find that variable there. And so eventually it's going to hit the root scope, right? That does declare that variable, and then it shows it. So let's try it again. Let's go to register, and let's register at work. So register. There we go. So notice that this is the information that that is being echoed by the server, right? Including the ID, right? The role, right? That this comes straight from the server. So there you go. So we were able to store the database and then into the database, and then echo back what the client, what the server generated, what the database stored back to the client.